There's a guy out there right now, running mental calculations on every little signal she sends. When she smiles, he's analyzing whether it's real or polite. When she texts back, he's clocking the response time. When their eyes meet, he's literally counting the seconds in his head. And when he gets home, he replays the entire interaction from the start, like watching game film after a loss. All of it, every second of it, just to answer one question. Does she like me or not? And here's what I want to say to that guy. The moment you're working that hard to figure it out, you've already lost. Now stay with me because I'm going to break that down. And by the end of this, you're going to see a pattern in your relationships that you probably didn't even know was there. Not just what the pattern is, but why it keeps happening and how to actually break it. But the answer isn't a technique. It's not a tactic. It's a way of being. Let's get into it. Here's the illusion most of us are living with. We think attraction is about how the other person sees us. So we keep our eyes locked on them, watching their reactions, reading their expressions, hunting for clues in everything they do. And look, that impulse makes sense. When things feel uncertain, the brain wants data. That's just human nature. But here's the problem. The act of searching for those signals sends its own signal. A loud one. It tells the other person exactly where your head is. When all your attention is focused on her reaction, what you're really communicating is, my emotional state depends on you right now. And people feel that. Without a single word being said, without a single move being made. You can't fake it, you can't hide it. Energy works that way. It's the thing you can't explain, but you always feel. And when your energy is set to waiting for your approval, it doesn't matter how good you look or how well you talk. She'll instinctively feel the shift in power. And it won't feel like attraction. Here's something I hear from men in their 40s and 50s all the time. When I was younger, it just happened naturally. Now I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And every time I hear that, I think the exact opposite of what they're implying. Maybe it wasn't that you were better at it when you were young. Maybe it was that you were less in your head about it. You weren't calculating as much. You had less to lose. You were less afraid. You were just yourself. And that was the attractive thing. As we get older, we start paying more attention to how we're being received than to who we actually are. The failures pile up. The heartbreaks stack. The rejections leave marks. And without even realizing it, we start running every word and every move through an internal filter. Does this sound weird? Is this too much? Am I coming on too strong? That constant. Self-editing slowly erases your presence. You start disappearing yourself. That's why attraction in your 40s is a completely different game. In your 20s, your magnetism is energy and potential. In your 40s and beyond, it's depth and stillness. It's the quiet weight of someone who has nothing left to prove. The feeling that says this person already knows who they are. And that doesn't come from having the right moves. It comes from where your attention lives. Not on how she sees you, but on how you're actually doing right now. Let me give you a specific picture of what I mean. Two men, same age, mid-40s, similar in every way. Same table, same situation, same conversation. The first one is tracking her the whole time. She laughs, he leans in. She goes quiet. He scrambles to change the subject. Silence shows up and he panics, filling it with whatever comes out. The weather, a half-formed joke, 3 questions in a row. When he gets home, he replays it and asks himself, how'd that go? The second man is different. Silence doesn't bother him. He says what he wants to say and doesn't check to see how it landed. When the conversation ends, he's not debriefing himself. He just talked about the things that actually interest him, at his own pace, in his own way. Now, why does the second man feel more magnetic? It's not that he's better looking. It's not that his stories are more interesting. It's that being around him, she doesn't feel like she's being evaluated. With the first man, she gets tense without knowing why. Because he's tense. Energy is contagious. But with the second man, something strange happens. She relaxes. And that relaxation starts to feel like something else. That feeling of, I like being around this person. That's what presence actually is. Not volume. Not dominating a room. Not talking the most. It's being so grounded in yourself that her reaction simply doesn't move you. That's real presence. So how do you build that? You don't add anything. You stop doing certain things. The first thing to stop is filling silence. Most men treat silence in a conversation like a warning light on the dashboard. So they reach for anything. The weather, a weird joke, 5 questions in a row. But when you're afraid of silence and you break it, your anxiety is baked right into the words. She's not hearing your content. She's feeling your discomfort. The ability to sit comfortably in silence is genuinely rare. And when you become that rare person, something shifts. She finds it oddly settling. This is someone who isn't rushing, isn't performing, isn't fighting to make the moment work. He'll just be himself whether this goes well or not. That impression? Built in a single, quiet moment. Next thing to stop over-explaining yourself. A lot of guys go deep into their own story trying to make a case for themselves. Here's what I've done. Here's what I've been through. Here's what I value. Please understand me. The desire to be understood is completely natural, but past a certain point, it flips. Over-explaining is actually a signal. It says I'm still not fully sure about myself, because a person who is sure doesn't explain. They just exist. Try this. Practice saying half of what you were going to say. At first, it'll be uncomfortable. You'll wonder if you said enough. But something interesting happens. The fewer words you use, the more each word weighs. And she starts to wonder about the rest. Leaving something unseen is one of the oldest and most powerful pulls in human attraction. Third thing, to stop checking for reactions. You say something, then scan her face. You make a joke, then wait to see if she laughed. You send a text, then watch the phone like it owes you something. These kinds of behaviors often send the same message. I need your approval right now. The moment that lands, the dynamic is set. There's the one who needs the approval and the one who gives it. And once that structure is in place, it doesn't matter how much you do for her. You're operating inside that frame. What starts as attraction becomes appreciation. What starts as appreciation becomes obligation. And obligation starts to feel like pressure. Sound familiar? This is why stopping the reaction check matters so much. You send the text, you put the phone down. You say the thing, you think about what you want to say next, instead of reading her face. Easier said than done, genuinely. Because this isn't a behavior change. It's a redirection of attention, away from her and back toward yourself. A person whose attention lives inside themselves asks different questions. Am I comfortable right now? Is this conversation actually interesting to me? Is this person worth my time? That's not arrogance. That's someone operating from a different position entirely, not waiting to be chosen, deciding. And that energy reads completely differently. Now let's go a little deeper. When I talk to men who feel like they've lost their edge, as they've gotten older, there's one question I always ask. Is there anything in your life right now that you're genuinely, completely absorbed in? And almost every time there's a pause. Then, not really. That matters more than most people think. When you don't have something in your own life, pulling your full attention, you pour all of that energy into the relationship, into her. It doesn't always look like obsession, but it feels like it. There's a quiet undercurrent of, this is all I have going on, and people sense that. On the other hand, a person whose life is full is different. The relationship matters to them, but it's not everything. They have work they care about, things they're learning, something they're building. And that sense of internal fullness becomes a kind of gravity. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to perform it. It just comes through in the way they carry themselves. Look at men in their 40s and 50s who suddenly seem more attractive than ever. It's not that they got better looking overnight. Something in their life got their full attention. A new pursuit they're completely into. A skill they picked back up after years. Something they've wanted to build for a long time and finally started. Those men have a different look in their eyes, a different weight to their words. You can feel the depth of someone who has their own world. That's the magnetism. So if you want to be more attractive, before you analyze her, ask yourself this. Is there a single moment in my life right now where I feel completely alive? If the answer is no, then conversation skills alone won't touch it. You can't put flowers on a tree with no roots. The roots come first. And one more thing I want to bring up, because it gets overlooked. One of the things men tend to lose as they get older is a sense of lightness about themselves. Not trying to be funny lightness, the ability to take themselves a little less seriously, to admit a mistake without it being a big deal, to let their imperfections show without treating them like a crisis. When someone can do that, the people around them exhale. Being around someone who needs to seem perfect creates tension. Being around someone who's okay with being imperfect creates relief. And people open up to the person who gives them relief. That's the impression you leave behind. Not the most impressive version of yourself, the most human one.
So here's where I want to land. Being someone worth reading isn't about strategy. It's not about managing your image or engineering the right impression. It's about talking about what genuinely interests you, moving at your own pace, not using her reaction as the measuring stick for your worth. That's it. That's the whole thing. But if it's so simple, why is it so hard? Because for a long time, most of us were trained in the exact opposite direction. We learned to earn approval, to prove ourselves, to wait to be chosen. That training is deep, and unlearning it is the work. You don't have to flip a switch today. Just try one thing. The next time you're talking to someone, instead of scanning their reaction, check in with yourself. Am I comfortable? Am I interested? Does this moment actually mean something to me? That single shift in where your attention goes, it changes more than you'd expect. Stop trying to read the signals. Become someone worth reading. That's the whole difference. Now I want to hear from you. What part of this hit hardest? Was it the silence thing? The habit of checking for reactions? Or the part about not having something you're truly absorbed in? Drop it in the comments below. Because your one honest comment might be exactly what someone else needed to read today. I'll see you in the next one.